So last time we spent a lot of time sorting out a pit guard for this thing. We made it out of clear acrylic so we can show off as much of this beautiful flamed maple veneer as humanly possible. And we're kind of at a stage with that now where we can leave it until we've got the finish done, which means we can move back up to the headstock. And as I said in the last episode, dress this up with a nice mother of pearl inlay. And I said last time that I wasn't going to go with the kind of normal script inlay that I do for a variety of reasons. I've done a number of them. I thought it'd be nice to have a change, and also something that kind of is more fitting to the angular nature of the Flying V. I'm not sure that what I've done represents that too well, but I kind of like it and I think it's going to work. And I've printed it out here a number of times in different sizes just to see which one's going to work best with a bit of mother of pearl I've got. And what I intend to do is just have my name in this somewhat angular font with an underline. And the reason I'm doing that is this is going to be a little bit more robust to kind of cut out, because the gap between the underline and the bottom of the letters, I'm actually going to just cut a groove in there once I've cut everything out before I inlay it. And then once I inlay it, I can fill that with rosewood dust and super glue, which will give me a kind of a perfect match to the rosewood. So it'll look like the underline is separate, but it'll actually still be the same bit of mother of pearl. But because it's only got a groove cut in it, it will mean that this is a lot more robust and less likely to break. That's my plan anyway. It does make it a little bit more complicated because with this configuration, there's more little kind of bits of piercing that I need to do to cut elements out of the letters, but I'm happy to go with that. I think that'll be absolutely fine. So next up, we just need to see which is going to fit best onto the mother of pearl that we've got. So I'll get the guitar out of the way and we can get that sorted. And I think if I just hold this bit of mother of pearl up to these, you can see that one's too big. That one will just about fit on. And obviously the bigger we can make this, the better, because it just makes it ever so slightly less fiddly. So I'll just make sure I don't cut the wrong one out, and then I'll get it cut out and we'll get it stuck onto the mother of pearl with the vegan Pritt stick, which we proved in the last episode where I did one of these, that it actually worked really, really well as an adhesive to stick a paper template onto mother of pearl. Didn't move, didn't come off, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'll just cut that down. I'm going to cut right on this bottom line like that, and then I'm just going to position that pretty much against the edge of this little bit of mother of pearl. I might leave a millimetre or so of additional material. We can always kind of trim that down in the end if we don't want to use quite that much. I'll just apply far too much Pritt stick. And just apply that to our mother of pearl. Probably going to leave that now for a little while just to kind of dry up a little bit, because the last thing I want to happen is for this to move. I've done these in the past. I used to use super glue and it used to stick it on quite well, but once it got hard, the action of the saw kind of quite often moved it and caused it to flip off the mother of pearl, which meant that you had to stick it back down again. And what normally happened is you couldn't stick it back down in exactly the same place, so the tiny little bridges between the letters just became too thin, and that's when you started breaking them. But in my last one, I used Pritt Stick instead, and it worked absolutely perfectly. To cut this out, I've just got my tiny little jeweler's saw, and I've got some 0/9 saw blades, and I've had these for years, to be honest. I bought 12 dozen in this pack, and I've still got a lot left. I'll tend to get through maybe 5 or 6 of these every time I cut one of these little logos out. Potentially on this one it might be a bit more, because it's not as involved, but it is quite delicate what I need to do. So we'll just see how that goes. And like I said, there's actually a lot more piercing work to do on this. So the C, the O, the gap between the two ends, the other O, and there's 2 bits on the R where I'm going to have to drill holes and kind of cut those little bits out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up and do those little bits first. And in terms of how I'm going to support this while I'm cutting it out, same setup as usual. Just got my little bench hook set up with a smaller little jaw that I've made just to kind of make things a little bit more supported. The only other thing is I tend to use a little bit of wax on these blades just to lubricate them. I find that makes them last a little bit longer. Other than that, I think we're pretty much ready to go. So I'm going to start by just drilling out some of these pierced bits that I need to cut out. And I think it makes sense to do this at this stage before things become too delicate. Now the last one at this size drill bit before we're going to have to go to something a lot smaller. And given this is 1.5 mil, a lot smaller isn't going to be very big at all. And what I've got here is a 0.8 of a millimetre drill bit. Wish me luck. That's wandering around all over the place. So I think I'm going to try, see if I can do it with one of these little very fine Dremel end mills, see if that will cut through. Which it did. Beautiful. I've lost a lot of my template there, but here you go. So that's all my little holes drilled. So I think next up we'll get this set up with the saw and we'll start cutting out those little pierced bits. And there is the last of those piercings done. The bits on the R, I'm just going to kind of slot those out using the Dremel and an end mill, but I'll do that kind of towards the end of what I'm doing here. So far so good. I'm still on the same blade, so that's a bit of a novelty. I've usually snapped a few by now, but next up we need to now start working towards getting the bulk of the rest of these letters cut out, which could be a long job to say the least. Okay, so the observant amongst you will notice that this isn't the same logo as we started out with. I broke that one. I think in an attempt at making this job a little bit easier on myself, I've actually made it exponentially harder. And I think cutting this out the way I'd first intended is pretty much impossible. So instead, what I've done is I've taken the Dremel in the micro router base and I've just carved out all of the little gaps and spaces between the letters so that they will be sunk below the surface. I can fill those with dust and super glue and it will kind of give us that separation between the letters. I've already carved in the line under here. It's underneath the template and I'm hoping that that's kind of in line with where we need it to be, but I think it'll be somewhere close. All that remains now, he said, is to just trace around the top of these letters and kind of continue to cut it out. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm really running up against the clock to get this done. If this goes live at 7 p.m. tonight, which is when I usually do these things, that's going to be roughly 3.5 hours after I'm actually doing the work now. So I've got a lot of work to do and then I've got quite a bit of editing to do once I finish it, and I'm pretty confident that trying to talk whilst I'm doing it greatly lessens my chances of success. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to continue and get this cut out. Okay, so there is the kind of basic shape cut out, and what I want to do now is just see if I can get this template off and just basically see kind of how well we've done. And I can kind of see that we're sort of where we need to be, but perhaps not fully, but it's hard to tell at this stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly spray over this with some black spray paint and then rub down and see what kind of finish we've got, and from there I can just use the Dremel to kind of cut in the final few bits. And you know, it's not bad. We're missing the little hole on the R, and there's a little bit missing on the end, so both those ends needs a little bit of touching up, and here probably needs to be a little bit more pronounced. So I'm just going to take the Dremel. This is going to be really difficult to film, so I think I'm going to have to fasten this down onto my bench hook so it's not moving about everywhere. And then I'll just take the Dremel and just cut in those areas of relief, which hopefully will give us the result that we want. Okay, so I've been backwards and forwards with that a number of times now, and it's kind of getting where I want it to be. There's a little bit more cleaning up work to do, and I think this underlying element of it is a little bit too thick, so I'm going to trim that down, and there's a little bit of work I need around that C&O just to finish it off. But all in all, it is kind of where I want it to be. This was a little bit experimental. I don't think it's worked as well as I would like it to do. I think looking back on it, my old way of doing it was probably a better one. This one's not as nice, I don't think, and it was definitely more difficult to do. So I think I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to have a go at tidying this up a little bit more, see if I can get it a bit nicer. If I can't, I'll remake it off camera. I might go back to the old design. I might do something slightly different. I don't know, but definitely worth a shot. Perhaps not as successful as I would have liked, but we had a go. What more can I say? So I think this is probably a good time to leave the video. I'll be back in a few days' time when we can see what the outcome of this little experiment was. So don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.